My name is David Madison, 23rd of November 2019. I was a Methodist minister for 9 years, but by the time I had finished my PhD in biblical studies, my belief in God had evaporated. I'm an ex-clergy atheist. That wasn't supposed to happen. Seminaries exist to manufacture clergy, but if you study the Bible too carefully, too closely, too critically, the errors and flaws become all too obvious. Hence this series of flash podcasts titled Bible Blunders and Bad Theology. I will discuss a lot of them. This is episode 12. In episode 4 of this series, I pointed out that it was a blunder to publish Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John together. This has made it so much easier to spot the contradictions and the goofs. Reading Mark and John, for example, back to back, why, it's almost as if there were two different Jesuses. There's another New Testament combination that makes us wonder what's going on. That is, publishing the Gospels along with the letters of the Apostle Paul. There's also the matter of the forged letters of Paul. It's taken scholars a long time to figure out that some are forgeries, but that's a topic for another episode. The real puzzle is that Paul doesn't seem to know much about Jesus of Nazareth. At least in all of his genuine letters, he doesn't mention the teachings of Jesus, none of the parables of Jesus, none of the miracles, the stories of his birth. All these are absent from Paul's letters. Devout New Testament scholars have long argued that the gospel stories written decades later are based on reliable oral tradition. But that's iffy at best. How come Paul, who traveled so widely in the early Christian world, never picked up on this oral tradition? He never heard stories about Jesus? It's mighty strange. Here's what he does tell us, and Christians should pay close attention. This is alarming. I want you to know, brothers, that the gospel I preach to you is not of human origin. I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it. Rather, I received it by revelation from Jesus Christ. He had hallucinations of a dead man. These are verses 11 and 12 of Galatians 1. And in the 18th verse, he says that he once spent 15 days with Peter. He also says, I saw none of the other apostles, only James, the Lord's brother. I assure you before God that what I am writing to you is no lie. Since nothing about Jesus ended up in his letters, what did they talk about for 15 days? Oh yes, there's Paul's famous account of Jesus instituting the Eucharist in 1 Corinthians 11. But he says he got that information in a revelation directly from Jesus. After all, Paul wasn't at the Last Supper. Quote, for I received from the Lord what I also passed on to you. In episode 9, I explained that it was Paul, in fact, who invented the Last Supper. He found out about Jesus through his hallucinations, and our suspicions about his state of mind deepen when Paul reports in 2 Corinthians 12 that he knew a person in Christ who was caught up to the third heaven, caught up into paradise, and heard things that are not to be told, that no mortal is permitted to repeat. A vivid imagination is at work here. We know that he was dead wrong about so much of his theology, such as his certainty that Jesus would arrive on the clouds of heaven soon to bring his kingdom. Paul was confident that it would happen during his own lifetime. It's too bad when theology is rooted in ancient superstition and hallucination. It's probably a blunder that Paul's letters, which include so much bad theology, ended up in the New Testament.